So just I added that in environment all and then host file, and rest of that in remaining playbook roles and everything is remaining same. So now if you see it, it's performing in that in two both server same task, but in a like in random order. So this is started first one is like in 6, but here you will see that in a 7 one is started first, and then installations is done. You can set that in a parallel running as well, or like in sequential way, which one you want to run when. Yeah, so both got completed, and 6 and 7 both got 7 tasks, and change, just we did that in chain 7. And if I come here and now just hit that in enter, we got that in 6 is running Ansible Apache role template Jinja 2 environments by the like in host file or inventory with, for development QA or all together combined, and host variables custom ansible.cfg file and running playbook in different environments. So these architectures we talk into that in architecture sections and in other few lectures as well. So what I'm going to do that in these lectures, we have a Ansible control server. We'll have a development server, one of the development server, one of the QA server. Just we'll consider that in QA server, but in real time it maybe will have a 100 plus server in development or 100 plus server in QA environment. So in this lecture I'm going to target that on premises one. So or like in anywhere until unless you have SSH connectivity from Ansible server to the any server, you will be able to do these operations. So in more details, what we have in as I talked like in on premises. So in local PC I have like in Windows 10 where I have installed the Vagrant, I have installed the VirtualBox, and in that like in Windows I have a one Ansible control server where Ansible is installed, and then I have a web server 01 and 02 where HTTPD is installed, and then once after that in installations and configurations we will be able to access that in a Apache running in both server with help of a Internet Explorer. So what we need for this demo, we need like in one playbook, so where we have a web as a host file, and then sudo we need a root user, so we have to just convert as a become a yes, so it will be considered as a root, and then I have already defined that in one role which is that in Apache, and that will be we are going to use that in that playbook, and then we have to call the ansible hyphen playbook space minus I and name of the inventory folder, and inside that we have a development QA or like in all, and then host, and then the site that yml hyphen v. So now we are saying that inside .yml, which is the entry point, so we can say that we have a database, we have a web server, we have a application server, so all together we'll say that inside like in one applications end-to-end running, and all like in a associated file like in YML file will be included into that. But for this example only we have one web server, one playbook is there which is site.yml, and that site.yml is calling to the Apache role, and it will be performed into that in a both server like in web server 01 and web server 02. So on after that in end of the demo we will able to see something result like that. So let me go and see that in okay. So there is a small one entry I have just added into that in Vagrant. So due to that I want to run that in Vagrant, and most probably it will take 2 or 3 minutes more compared to that in other lectures. So let me go through that and explain that in what I have did that in changes in Vagrant. So earlier it was there that in only web server and web 01 with IP address 6, and on earlier we have a Ansible server, so there is no change into that in Ansible server, that is as it is. And after that we have like in already go through that in a web server part which is 01, but only a small change is there, here we have like in guest port 22, host port 22, and guest 80 and host 80. So for 80 there is no problem, but I have just copied that in 01 and just rename it a 02. So if you'll see that now we have a web server 02, web 02, and web 02 all converted into that, and same CentOS box I'm using. Host name just got changed to web server 02, IP address got 6 to 7. So now we have a two web server, one for IP address 6 and another one for IP address 7, and then guest is 22 and host is running into the bit different port now. So only one this change you have to do that in, I'm just highlighting again, and if you'll do that in same port for like in all, then it will be not work. So just change that in host port 23 or anything like in other than that, and rest of that in remaining same, there's no change and all that. So just copy and paste that in a 01 to 02, even though that is not required, I'll be upload this Vagrant file, you can start from here. So what we have, we got that in this is the folder where background.file is there. Then this example I'm going to use that in and these are the commands I'm going to use, like in background up, then ssh into the Ansible server, ssh into that in one of the web server 0102, and then run. These are the command, and then hit that in a IP address for seeing the result. Now one more thing, just I want to let you know why I have put that in a hands-on example. We are starting with a 101, 102, 201, 301, and 401, because in going forward, once we'll have a QA sessions, and if any candidate is looking for anything related to that in subject, I'll just add the additional course contents along with a 402, 403, 405, and 406. Similarly, for 101 sections, I'll add up to 99, 201, 202 up to 200, and something like that. So I want to make a space with a related topic. So in this topic, in more details, we are going to talk about host and inventory file, and calling that in a role along with with help of a playbook. So let me go on. So what we have in previous, everything we are into that in the same folder, but now this is that in I'm just moving into that in bit ahead for real-time implementations other than the learning. So I'm considering while watching this video, you are that in expert, not expert, but at least intermediate in in Ansible. So what you have to do for real-time project, just create your project folder and put that in environment, where environment will be there like in development, QA, or you can put that in all. So let's say like in what does mean like in development. So I'll say that in development, meaning uh, if I'll go to that in development folder, I'll be have a host file, and all development related web server, database server, application server will be there inside this host. Similarly, for QA server, all QA server will be listed under that in that host, and that will be accessible. And at the time of a runtime, development will be perform the task in development, QA will perform the task in QA. So that will be help it out once you'll do that in automations. However, sometimes we need doing that in operations in all environment. Then you can just define that in a one group, and under that in a child group or subgroup, with help of a you can add that in a multiple host as well. So so far so forth, we did that in just only one host at a time, but now we have opportunity to see and go and see that in a more than one host. So let me perform that in some vagrant task, and then we'll talk on the these ones because it's a time consuming. So open the command prompt, and I'll be like upload this file, upload this file. You have to just download and place anywhere, and make sure you install the vagrant and virtualbox. And so do that in cd, and I'm in like in this folder, and if you'll see, we have a 404 Ansible playbook and the vagrant file. What I have to do that in first command, vagrant up, and it will take some time in between. We'll go and discuss that. So what will be happen, we'll be see that in three system, like in one is Ansible control server, web server 1 and web server 2, that will be provisioned into that in my local PC. So it will be take some time in between. Let's go and talk on that in all files. So yeah, yes, I started. Let it be. So we talk about the environment. We have, you can create that in a number of environment, including that in a cloud as well. And after that, you can place that in a playbook. So you can put that in playbook specific to that in your applications. Let's say you have applications for we can say that in one web applications for the some XYZ client. You can just make a playbooks. Under that, you can put that in a subfolder, and you can call that in an in separate folder, and that your playbook will be there inside that. So what will be happen once you use that in any automated tools like in Jenkins or like in any other tools? So you'll be have to like in separate playbook and folder structure. So it is easy to automate that in So now we'll see that inside .xml, YML. So inside that YML, we have just a playbook syntax, and host we are using the babe, become yes, and gather packet yes, because I need a Ansible, host IP address, host name we are getting from gather packet itself, and role we are calling that uh, role and Apache, which we have defined that in it's there into that in role folders inside the Apache. Again, we have a handler, meta, task, template, var, and readme. So in VR sections, we don't have anything at the moment. it's a blank, but you can use it if you have any variables. In template, now we are I have just created that in index.html, and that index.html will be it will be placed into that in both server, and just it will be take that in Ansible hostname with help of a Ansible packet file. And after that we have a task. So in task, just we have one web server, and in that web server we are just installing that in Apache, and we are enabling the services Apache, and that enabling that in HTTP servers in remote host with a firewall. And then we are just reload the firewall services after enabling HTTP service, and then adding that in a HTML index.html with help of a template. So index.toHTML have one variable we are passing, and then that index.html will be created under that in both remote server, like in web server 01 and web server 02, under that in /var /www/html /index.html, and it will be assigned that permissions to that in honor as a root and group as a root, and modify the permissions 0644. And again, after doing these changes, it will notify to that in restart the Apache. So that will be there under that in we'll see that in handler. So now I'm calling that in web server, including the task as a web server, and then we are making a tag of a web server. So in this example, we'll see that in also a tag uses, and after that we have a handler. So inside that in handler, because we have notified that in after doing that in placing that in index.html, need to restart. So just if you see that in heading is there same restart Apache, and name is equal to httpd, and state is equal to restarted. So here we'll get that in a multiple state, and on basis of that we can restart a start, a stop, or absent. So on basis of that you can choose that in one of them at a time, and you can tag it as well. So we talk about the role. After that, this is that in ansible.cfg file what we talk. So in earlier this ansible.cfg file, we are there into that in /etc/ansible/ this ansible.cfg. But now it's a best way to place that in your one folder direct like where you have a project, and customize it on basis of your one. But this one will be have a more preference, and other ansible.cfg file will be not read if you place in here. So we'll see this ones in more example while going through that in one attributes at a time. Let me go and have a look on that. Still it's provisioning. So it's still provisioning web server 01, and if you'll see Ansible one is done, Ansible control server is done. Still it will take few more minutes time. Let me go and I have more details on the ansible.cfg. So in ansible.cfg, what are the configurations we can change? I'm sorry. So by default it will be there like in inventory locations, which is etc ansible.host, and we can change it on basis of runtime while passing that in -i parameter. Library by default module utility remote temp, so we can change that in these temporary locations as well. If you want to do that in custom one, local temp, you can also change that in forks. We can use that in poll inventory. We can change that in pseudo user as well. We can change the ask password, transport remote port, module long. So if your remote port is something other than 22, we can place that in hey, this is the my remote port. Generally in actual implementations, we not allow that in port 22 to open to the so instead of that, just we need to customize it. So in that case you have to put that in remote port, but make sure you have like in all remote port remaining same. And again, module language also you can change. By default it is C. Module set local also you can change it, and there are so many other parameters is there which you can change it. And all everything we have it like in documented Ansible. They have already provided that in better documentations for understanding purpose. And if you have any questions on that in this part, just ping me like in QA section, so, or message me. I'll be answer that in a specific, but it's straightforward. If you read it on documentations is there for clarify it. Okay, let me go and have a look on that in what is happening. Oh, still web server 02 is configuring, and it's almost about to done now. Configuring and enabling. Okay, syncing the folder. Here we go. So we got that in both server running. We'll go and see that in in virtualbox. So in virtualbox we are our expectations is three server is running. One is that in Ansible control server. Second one we have first one is Ansible one. Second one is web server 01. This is the web server 02. So all three server is up and running. What we'll do, we log in into that in one of the like in all three server, and we'll see. So let me open the three terminals. One is already there. I'll open the two. So here I'm just using that in ssh minus space hyphen o strict host key checking equals to no, because it again and again I'm performing this command. So it's not allowing to read that in in host file, and we'll get some warning, and it will not allow until unless you remove. So better to provide these ones as well, and just press enter. So this is the warning message we are getting. So I'm in that in Ansible control server. Let me open that in another Windows as well. And here I'll be use that in 6, and one more needed 7. And we got that in all three servers. First one is Ansible control server, second one is a both web server. Now what I'll do, I'll open the browser and I'll just hit the http da:/6. Nothing is there. I'll just copy and see that in is that there in the 7 one. No, that's fine. So what we have to do, I mean like in Ansible control server. So what is the next command? Just I have to do that in changing the permission. This is the command for just changing the permissions to public key and private key, and I'll provide this command, all these command to like So we got the permissions got changed. Now cd into that vagrant folder and 400s, and now again we got that in this folder. Go to the 400s, and if we perform the tree, then these are the all files we have. Ansible.cfg we talk, we have an environment where we have a all, we have a host, again we have a development host and qa host, we have playbooks folder, and under that we have site.yml, we have a roles, under roles we have Apache, handler we have a man meta, we have man readme, we have in task we have man and web server, in template we have index.html.j2, and VR sections we have man.yml. So what I'm going to do now, all files we have to just perform that in a command like in ansible hyphen minus I, and now we have to use the inventory, and just I'm saying the development and host, and then we have a playbooks and then site.yml, and just put that in a v. So what will be happen, only that configurations is going to be happen into the development server. It's going to be happen in development server, which is IP address is a 6. So I just type this command and perform enter. I started installing the Apache web server. Yeah, so we just perform the command in Ansible control server, and it's going to perform in a web server 01. It's installing a httpd, and we'll able to see that in output in IE. Enable the HTTP service on that in remote host, and reloading firewall services, and everything is Ansible undefined file variable where message is undefined. Okay, no problem. So what I have to go and do that, and we have to go into the template sections, vi roles template. Okay, and then template index.2, actually this variable we are it's not finding. So what I'll do, I'll remove it because I thought it will be work into that in while commenting and uncommenting. So let me delete this line itself and just perform that in one more time. Sorry. So here we can perform that in next command uh, like in the retry and so forth with help of a limit. So in that case I will see that in later, but just let me perform that in one more time after doing that in change, because that variable were there, and I'll remove that in before uploading that the file. Here we go. So we got that in OK8 change 4, and now we'll be able to see the result in 6. And hey, this is that in web server and web server 01, and it's considering 6 because we have just performed that in in development server. Now what I'll do, I'll just go and just change that in inventory development to the QA. So what will be happen? It will be go and do that in same like in Playbook, same rules, only we are changing the inventory, and it will be go and install that in Apache into the web server 02. So meaning web server 02, here we have already done it as a development. Here it will be go and perform that in web server 02, or like in similarly. So for these ones we can say that in perform the command in Ansible control server and done into that in development server. Now we are doing that in Ansible, performing the command in Ansible control server, and it will be doing that in a QA server. Now it's adding that in index.html into that in another server. So we can see that in which server we are running that. So now we have 192.168.10.7, and all task is done. 6 got changed and 8 is okay, and nothing in like any issue. So if I'll come and perform that, now we got that in a web server 02. So we got that in web server 01, we got the web server 02. What I'll do, I log in into the web server 01 and 02 and uninstall that in Apache. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to sudo yum erase httpd and then -y. So it will be, yeah. So and same thing I'm going to perform that in in web server 02 as well. So web server 01 is done. And if I'll go and hit that in our website, we'll not get that in response. Reason why, because we have uninstalled it. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to use that in a inventory, third inventory, which is all. So in all we have defined the both server, and in both server meaning it will be run that in server 1 and server 2. So this task is going to be performed where web server 01 and web server 02 both will be run. So just I added that in environment all and then host file, and rest of that in remaining playbook and roles and everything is remaining same. So now if you see it, it's performing in that in two both server same task, but in like in random order. So this is started first one is like in 6, but here you will see that in a 7 one has started first, and then installations is done. You can set that in a parallel running as well, or like in sequential way, which one you want to run when. Yeah, so both got completed, and 6 and 7 both got 7 tasks, and change, just we did that in chain 7. And if I'll come here and now just hit that in enter, we'll got that in 6 is running, web server 02. So meaning web server 02, here we have already done it as a development. Here it will be go and perform that in web server 02, or like in similarly. So for these ones we can say that in perform the command in Ansible control server, and done into that in development server. Now we are doing that in Ansible's performing the command in Ansible control server, and it will be doing that in a QA server. Now it's adding that in index.html into that in another server. So we can see that in which server we are running that. So now we have 192.168.10.7, and all task is done. 6 got changed and 8 is okay, and nothing in like any issue. So if I come and perform that, now we got that in a web server 02. So we got that in web server 01, we got the web server 02. What I'll do, I log in into the web server 1 and 02 and uninstall that in Apache. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to sudo yum eras erase httpd and then -y. So it will be, yeah. So and same thing I'm going to perform that in in web server 02 as well. So web server 01 is done. And if I'll go and hit that in our website, we'll not get that in response. Reason why, because we have uninstalled it. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to use that in a inventory, third inventory, which is the all. So in all we have defined the both server, and in both server, meaning it will be run that in server 1 and server 2. So this task is going to be performed where web server 01 and web server 02 both will be run. So just I added that in environment all and then host file, and rest of that in remaining playbook and roles and everything is remaining same. So now if you see it, it's performing in that in two both server same task, but in like in random order. So it's a started first one is like in 6, but here you will see that in a 7 one has started first, and then installations is done. You can set that in a parallel running as well, or like in sequential way, which one you want to run when. Yeah, so both got completed, and 6 and 7 both got 7 tasks, and change, just we did that in chain 7. And if I'll come here and now just hit that in enter, we'll got that in 6 is running, and we got the 7 is also running. What I'm going to do that in change now, I'm going to define that in some do that in some change in the variable file, which is that in vi row environment, and then all, and then host. And in here I just want to comment this part and use the variable. So as we talked that in our past in variable sections, we can use that in a host level variable, or like in uh, um, um, inventory level variables, and that variable I'm going to use that in Jinja 2. So now for both server we defined that in here underscore greeting and the welcome, and we are greeting and welcome, and these variables I'm going to use that in Jinja 2, and we'll get that in output as well. So vi roles and Apache template and index 2, and what I'll add that in one additional line br, and then I'll just add that in welcome hello, and just I'll do the double inverted comma, then Jinja 2, and I'll just add that in Okay, that's not required because I have added that in variable. So this message will be like, go and change into that in both server. So again, I have to go and perform that in that changes into the all environment, and that host level variable will be replaced into that in our Jinja 2 template, and we'll be able to see that in that output into that in a browser. So yeah, so all changes done, and just if I'll come and perform that in refresh, we got that in a hello and welcome, and here also we got the hello and welcome. So let me see if something is there in this topic. Oh no, so almost done from that in this lectures, and what we understand in recap. So we provision that in a three server, which is Ansible control server, development server, and QA server, and that is there like in Windows 10 with help of a Vagrant and VirtualBox, like in Ansible control server. And in Ansible control server by default we install the Ansible, then we provision the one web server 01 where HTTPD install, web server 02 where HTTP install, and we perform that in an Ansible playbook command with like in from development we perform in that in QA like in web server 01 for web server 02, and then we perform that in a one-time command for both, and then we added that in a host entry file, host level variables, and then we are able to see that in that variable is reflecting in both places in web server 01 and web server 02 as well. And that's all about in this lecture, and thanks for watching.